What's up guys, I'm Zach and welcome back to Workshop Edits and welcome to episode 4 of my tiny office build series. In today's video, we're going to be tackling the entire roof, the fascia boards, as well as the underside shiplap ceiling of this structure. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's go ahead and get started.
I'm up here on the roof. It's a beautiful day. I'm going to get my rigid foam insulation done on the roof. It's almost the exact perfect size just to have 3 of these sheets of 4x8 1-inch thick rigid foam. The only thing I have to do is cut around where my light placements are, and then I can drop them into place. And I'm going to attach them using these fast and tight screws. You can see then they have like a plastic cap on them. They'll drive through the foam but won't go through it because of that plastic cap, and they'll go into the roof below it. Then when I actually put the OSB on top of it, I'll drive screws that go all the way through the insulation, through the roof, into the rafters. Getting the OSB secured to the roof on top of the rigid insulation that I laid down the other day. I'm using the perimeter to secure the wood and make sure that it's straight. The roof is actually very square, so that's helpful. Then I'm also using these big 4-inch screws that I already had to drive through the plywood, through the insulation, through the shiplap roofing and into the actual studs underneath. So that's pulling everything down and securing that OSB before we move on to felt paper and actually tiling the roof and doing the rest of the finishing up here. All right, just finished so many things. So I wanted to tackle the entirety of the roof. In order to start that, I needed to paint all of my fascia boards. Well, I needed to get my fascia boards hung up and then paint them. So I ended up doing 2 coats of this black color called Tomcat. It's a matte color. It looks freaking awesome. Once the paint was dried, I went on and I sealed all of my edges and all of my joints in the OSB and up to and around the fascia boards. Then I can move on to flashing. So I did the rear flashing first with roofing nails over the edge, the 2-inch drip edge, and I'm using black flashing to match the black trim. Then I did the sides. Ow. And I smashed the shit out of my thumb, so that felt great. Then I moved on to roofing paper. So I wanted to do the rear and side flashing first so that then the roofing paper could layer on top of it. So there's a bunch of redundancies in the overall like moisture protection of the roof. I'll have the OSB, then with the sealed edges, then with the drip edge over those edges, and they're also sealed with like roofing sealant caulk type stuff. Then the roofing paper with plastic cap nails is over those edges, so a third redundancy. Now the last thing to do is the shingles. So it's about 12 by 8. So it's about 100 square feet of roofing shingles, and I'm just gonna go one row at a time, staggering them as I go per the recommended instructions. Doing it all by hand, don't have a roofing nailer, but I don't know. It's kind of nice to just swing a hammer and get better at it so I don't smash my thumb in the future.
The other thing I did was pre-cut my side pieces. I'm sure there's a term for it. There's a really straightforward method to following to cutting these, and it allows you to have the least amount of waste with the shingles that you buy. So you start by using a full strip, then you take another strip, you measure 10 3/8 inches in, and you cut that in half. You end up with 2 pieces. Then you take another piece, you measure in 16 3/8 inches, and you cut it down there, and you end up with 5 pieces that are stacked quite evenly, and you just repeat that 5-step pattern so that your shingles are offset and you don't have seams that end up on top of each other.
Well, annoyingly, I ran out of tiles, but I got really far, so I just gotta finish up that back corner over there, but overall, it's looking really nice. Finish up the top, put the drip edge on, and this roof will be finished. All right, fast forwarding, the roof is done. So my neighbor happened to be redoing his roof with the exact same black shingles that I was using. So he was cool enough to give me 5 of them. So I finished up this back corner, and you saw me cutting and cornering the 2-inch drip edge for both of the fronts. So those went on last over the top so that water will run either in front of it and then down the fascia boards, or it will run down the roof and then over the first double layered set of shingles. So those were hammered down with roofing nails, and then I went back with my roofing seal and I sealed each one of those nails. The flashing, I feel really good about this. I'm really excited to not have to get up on that roof anymore because it is 100% complete. So my plan for the underside of the overhang is to do a painted shiplap. It'll be the same color as the fascia board, so that like nice matte black. So I started off this morning by painting everything, like doing a first layer of paint on it. Just figured it'd be a lot easier to paint things on the ground versus getting everything up and trying to do multiple coats of paint. Doing this totally solo, so the hardest part is definitely hanging these 12-foot long pieces. Luckily I have 2 ladders, so I'm just going slowly, lifting them both up on top of the ladders and then trying to just push and add some brad nails as I go, and as I go things start to secure in place, and just making sure they're properly cut to length. For the middle of the long pieces, that is where I'm going to have my 2 recessed lights that will sit on the underside. They're the same ones that are on the inside. I just got 2 of them out here on a separate switch. So I marked and measured out evenly inwards once I had that piece cut to length. Used the same template and cut it out with a jigsaw. The third piece is a little bit tricky because it overlaps the corners. So what I had to do was measure the width from the remaining amount of space in between, and then I used my circular saw to cut the very small sharp corners, and then I did a 2-part cut on my table saw where I marked out what I needed to do, set the fence to that exact width, and then I raised the blade up in it, did a pass one way, turned the saw off, lowered the blade, flipped the piece over, and then ran the saw the other way. And that way I had a really nice, straight, clean cut. Just got that piece hung, and I'm really, really impressed with how well that came out. Measuring 3 times, cutting twice vibes. Now that I have all that done, I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna cut all of my 8-foot pieces to account for the side. That should go really quick because it's just brad nails in each of the 2 places where I put wood to attach them to, running all the way down. Then we're gonna have to cut a couple of pieces to go the length, just 1 piece to go the length of the rear side. Got all the boards installed. I'm gonna go around and use some silicone and seal up all of the nail holes, let it dry, and then give it one more coat of paint. And that's gonna be done. Looks awesome. Now that the entire roof is done, all of the electrical is done, the soffit is done, I really can turn my attention to 2 different things. 1, the outside facade, or 2, the inside, insulation and drywalling. I'm probably going to go back and forth between them just based on how much I probably am going to hate drywalling, but it's really nice out right now. I don't have any of the exterior materials. I don't have the drywall yet, but I do have the fiberglass insulation. I do have the spray foam insulation for all the corners. So I'm just going to spend a little time going around to all of the corners and all the bases and any of the exterior outlets and do the spray foaming. Then I think we're going to spend some time in the evening doing all of the fiberglass insulation so that then I can actually get the materials for drywalling and have a blast doing that. Best part about having the electrical done means I can work at night. So I have a beer, I have music, and I have insulation. So I'm gonna work for however long it takes, but I'm gonna try to get all the insulation done. A few tips that I read, and they're specific to working in California. 1 is have the moisture barrier facing the inside. I don't know why, but I think because it's generally just hot and we're trying to keep our places air conditioned, it helps to have the moisture barrier facing inside. The other thing I read was that when you get to wires, ideally you will split the fiberglass insulation in half and go half on one side and half on the other. And that way you don't press the insulation up against a wall on the exterior or the interior, and it's split nicely. The other tip I read is that you use your studs as your backer to cut a straight line, and try to use a straight edge if you can, just to make your cuts nice and clean. And the last tip I read was fill every space possible. So that means cutting small things, trying to fill the space behind outlets. So I've never done insulation before, so I'm just gonna start with one wall, figure it out as I go, and follow all the rules that I read. This should be a really enjoyable evening. I guess one of the benefits of having an OSB flooring is it can basically be my cutting board. So this is what I was talking about. I've got Romex wire up here. You can essentially split this. I'm gonna go put a mask on after this. I'm gonna feed this underneath. I am so itchy. But I am done.
All right, so that is gonna wrap it up for this episode. Now, if you are watching these in real time, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel so that you can be around and be notified when the next video in this series comes out. If you are watching these later on, I will have a playlist linked to every video that is launched right here, as well as the next episode in the series right here. If you have any questions about this project, materials, process, some stumblings that I went through, or you just want to generally understand where I got some of my information from so that you can combine it with this video and do your own research, please feel free to leave a comment, and like always, I would be more than happy to respond and give you as much information as I can. I'll see you guys next time on whatever it is that I'm building. Bye.